You know him from Creed and from Alter Bridge, but can Mark Tremonti actually sing like Frank Sinatra? We'll find out on this edition of Chris Akin Presents. It is Chris Akin Presents, and I, of course, am Chris Akin. And joining me for this edition of Chris Akin Presents is a guy that you clearly know if you listen to rock or metal at all. You certainly know him. You certainly remember the old days from his old band Creed. You certainly know the current days from Alter Bridge, and the even more current days as just Mark Tremonti. He is Mark Tremonti, and he's here to talk about a project that quite honestly surprised me, and I'm sure everybody else, called Mark Tremonti Sings Frank Sinatra. So we'll talk all about that, but first let's welcome on Mr. Mark Tremonti. Mark, how are you, man?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm awesome, man. Great to talk to you. I'm going to be straight up with you here. I got this record and I was like, what is this, Bizarro World Pat Boone? You know, I was like, wow, this is something very different. And to be honest, it surprised me how good it is. And I don't say that with any disrespect, but you know how this goes, man. There's a lot of guys that have passion projects and they're doing it because it's their passion, not because they're necessarily good at it.
Yeah.
You are really, really good at this, man. It's fantastic.
Well, you know what? The whole point was what you're saying, how it came out of, came out of left field and it's so different. That's the whole Take a Chance for Charity idea, is to get other people to do this project where their fans are like, what in the hell did they do?
Sure.
It could be horrible. It could be great, but I'm interested. You know, that as long as it makes money for charity, you know, it's worthwhile.
Certainly, man. And we'll definitely talk about the charity, but I got to ask you, just as a guy, for people that don't know, since we're not even explaining what the record is, for people that don't know, what you did was you took the music of Frank Sinatra and you didn't like metal it up or anything. You kind of changed yourself into the world of Frank Sinatra and did a real Rat Packy type of a vibe and feel. And you worked with some of the guys that worked with Frank, and you really did a tremendous project here, kind of recreating that. So why don't we start there, Mark, and talk a little bit about your history, I guess, with this kind of music. Are you a big longtime Sinatra fan, or was it solely for the charity, or what led you to this music?
You know, just like anybody else, I grew up with it in the house. You know, Christmas time would come around, you'd hear Frank Sinatra singing. It always made me feel good. It was always a happy time hearing him sing. And then, you know, you see him in the movies, on the radio, whatnot. There's no way to get away from it. And then about 3 years ago, I became a fanatic. I just don't know, a switch went off and I saw some old videos of him playing in the 40s. And, you know, it caught my interest first because people usually know Sinatra for New York and My Way and all the modern stuff. But
Sure.
His earlier stuff was just as good. And I wanted to dive back in and learn more about his history. And his life was so interesting, what he accomplished. He was in, I think, over 56 movies. He recorded over 1,400 tracks. He raised over $1 billion for charity. He won an Oscar. He was nominated for another Oscar. He's done it all. So he was fun to read about and research. And I didn't know what I was going to do with it other than just being a fan. But, you know, about 2 years into really practicing singing like him, we got the diagnosis that my daughter was going to be born with Down syndrome. So I decided to record a record to raise money and awareness for people with Down syndrome.
Sure. And you are working with the National Down Syndrome Society, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And did you just reach out to them and say, hey, you know, what can I do to help? Or did you say, I'm interested, and they said, oh, well, do this? Or how did the correlation between the two come together?
I think they were pretty blown away. They said, you know, we'd be happy if Mark just came up in here, did our buddy walk in September to help raise money and, you know, awareness. But to do a record with Sinatra's band members and raise money singing, they were very happy about it. They came down to, we just had our first show Saturday night, and they flew in from New York and were a part of the event. You know, we I think we raised about $150,000 in 2 days with two
Right.
a rehearsal show and then the real show on Saturday night. But they couldn't be happier. And we're talking about trying to put together a show, an event with them in September as well in New York.
Sure. Do you feel, as a celebrity, as a rock star guy, do you feel like an obligation to give back in some way, or do you just do it because that's just you personally?
No, I think everybody should give back. Anybody that's been fortunate enough to be able to give back should. It's it's one thing making a bunch of money, hoarding it for yourself, but it's
Right.
it means so much more when you it's, I don't want to sound cheesy, but at Christmas time, you can't wait for your wife or your kids to open up their presents because you're excited to give them something. It's the same thing with charity. When you meet these people that you're helping out, it means way more than buying some toy, for
Right.
yourself. It means way more. So I hope this whole thing turns into like the ice bucket challenge, where I challenge people to do it, they challenge their friends to do it, and it just keeps spiraling into this huge money maker for charity. And my next goal in life before I die is to help this organization raise $100 million for charity. Not the Sinatra thing, but my other friends who are lining up to do it, and them telling their friends, and them telling their friends to do it.
Absolutely, man. It's a great goal, man. Well, man, let's talk about the record itself, because I have a ton of questions.
Mm.
First and foremost, the voice. You have that voice down, and not just the voice. I mean, anybody can do karaoke,
Right.
anybody can go do that. But you've got the inflections and the nuances. It's very clear you didn't just know the songs and throw on a mic and do this. So talk a little bit about it for you, how much effort you put into it. Is it natural for you, or is it almost like an impression where you're doing an impression of Frank? I mean, because it's just not what anybody knows you for.
Yeah, no, I spent a lot of time. During COVID, we weren't allowed to, when my son had soccer practice, you're not allowed to leave the car. So
Okay.
a lot of my practice came and he was on 2 soccer teams. So he would have 3 hours soccer practice, 4 to 5 nights a week. And I would drive 45 minutes there, 45 minutes back. So I'd have 4-hour days of focusing on one song. So what I would do is I'd bring my laptop, I would listen to the way he sang the song, I would write down the lyrics, the way he pronounced them. I wouldn't spell them the way they were spelled in the English, in the dictionary. I'd spell them the way he pronounced them.
Right.
And then I would move them and shift them to the way he phrases them, because that's one of the things he's most famous for as a singer, is his pocket and where he places his words. He never sang the same song twice the same way. So I would pick my favorite way, and I would try to master that. And then I would learn how he breathed and where he used his vibrato, what kind of vibratos, how fast, how slow. And I really just obsessed about it. And it was just like, to me, it was no different other than the physicality of it than learning how to play a guitar solo from another player.
Okay.
When you're listening to a guitar solo, you're like, all right, that sounds like it's played on the G string because it's not wound. You hear these little things,
Sure.
you hear these, that's a pick attack. That's not a pick attack. That's, you learn how to really analyze things the more you look into it. So it was just like using your ear to figure out how to sing these parts, because I at first I Googled Frank Sinatra vocal lessons, YouTube, how to sing like Frank Sinatra. And time again, I'd come across somebody going, here's how you sing like, and they're tenors singing, trying to teach you how to sing Frank Sinatra, and it didn't make any sense. So finally I was like, I give up. I'm just going to learn it by myself, just like I did the guitar. Because there's nothing like passion for something that's going to be a better teacher for you. If you're passionate enough about something, you're going to figure out a way to do it.
Right on, man. And I read in the press, and I don't know how this came to be, that you worked with the surviving members of Frank's old band. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. So when I told my manager that I wanted to do this project, that's once we got the diagnosis that my daughter was going to be born with Down syndrome, this daughter here.
Nice.
I said I wanted to do this, and I wanted to do it to raise money for charity. And he said, you know what? My guitar teacher growing up was Dan McIntyre. He played with Frank Sinatra on tour.
Oh wow.
Mind blown. Well, what a great coincidence. So he set up a lunch meeting with Mike Smith, who was Frank Sinatra's band leader. And they sat down with my manager and they're like, all right, well, can your guy sing? And my manager had never heard me sing Frank Sinatra. He's like, of course he can. Because that's what managers do. They believe in their clients. So
he has a Grammy. Of course he can.
of course he can do it. You know, he'd probably say the same thing if I was trying to do a Prince record. Yeah, of course he can. But so they said, all right, now I can organize all my guys. He has a huge amount of them that live up in Chicago. So we gathered 15, I believe, of the guys who toured with Sinatra, and 2 or 3 that didn't. One was Julian, which was Mike Smith's son, who plays bass on this record, most of the tracks, and he's actually toured with Lady Gaga as well. And then 2 of the younger players were trombone players, and they were all just amazing. The toughest thing was to get the approvals from the state, to have them say you can use Frank Sinatra's name and likeness on this album. That's a huge honor. And they've only, that's guys like Tony Bennett and Michael Bublé have gotten that. So it's, that was one of the biggest achievements was to be able to get that green light. And I think because we brought these members that had played with Sinatra, and because we were doing it for charity, they opened their doors to us.
Sure. Was it like almost relearning how to record again, working with such a big ensemble? I mean, because let's face it, you're a rock guy, there's usually, there's a lot of tracks, but there's basically tracks from 4 parts, and guitar, vocal, bass, and drums. Now you got all these different people doing all these different things. Was it a difficult or a new process for you?
It was awesome. There was nothing to hide behind. And I appreciate that now. And I appreciate that so much more now that I've done it, about how great these musicians are. What you hear on modern recordings is, like you said, not one guitar, but I'll track 2 tracks of guitar. Miles will track 2 tracks of guitar. So they're called quadded. Then you have a bass guitar. Then you have a track with each drum on it. A snare has its own track, a kick drum. You've got all kinds of, it's for the most part, most bands make it perfect. It makes it, everything's in time, everything's in pitch, everything's just right. But what you hear on this Sinatra record is the band playing one time through. There's no double doing anything. There's no overdubs. There's no edits. Everybody's sharing the same room. So if the saxophone is off, it ruins the whole thing. Start over. So this was these guys going, all right, here's take 2. Sounds good to me. Let's go to the next song, which to me was a little bittersweet because I had been practicing this stuff so much. I wanted to spend a whole day on one song.
Right.
But we recorded 2 songs first just to see if the band and I vibe together, and we got along so well that the next session we did 6 songs. So these were 2-day sessions. So we would do 6 songs in 2 days. Okay. So the band with the setup was the most time, getting the chairs and the charts and everything together. Once the band went through the song once, they say, all right, get in the vocal booth, and they'd go through it like 2 more times and be done with it.
Wow.
Which was nuts. So we recorded 14 songs in 6 days.
Right. Really makes you appreciate how good those old timers really were back in the day, doesn't it?
Oh, they're insane. You can't just pick up your instrument in high school and be a pro by the time you're in college with these kind of musicians. These jazz guys have been doing it since they were children and until their adult lives to be as good as they are. And it's it's a lifelong dream that these folks had. It wasn't these guys are lifers.
Sure. Now for you, Mark, obviously you can do this and you do it very well. And I suggest to anybody, it's not even if they're not even a Frank Sinatra fan, that they listen to it, because it's fascinating how close you come to the vocal. Is this something you may pursue more, or is it just the one time for charity? Because literally I could see you doing the casino residency, once Alter Bridge is done. You could.
We plan on doing it, doing the full thing. It's the good thing about this is it doesn't necessarily need to be a 6-week long tour with this, Sinatra band. It's I see this more as Alter Bridge goes on tour. We're over in Europe. Let's stay another week and do 5 shows with the Sinatra band. Just, you know, keep it going. Maybe 3 or 4 times a year I do a batch of shows. Because if you don't, it just disappears, you know. We're already talking about doing shows in September and then some shows in December. So, you know, hopefully we get a good, you know, 10, 15 shows done before the year's over.
Very good. Well, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask where we're at with Alter Bridge, because I know you're in the process of doing another release. So where are we with that?
So I just finished tracking yesterday the new album.
Okay, great.
I'm the last guy. Miles finished about a week ago. So I'm the last guy because one of the last things are guitar solos and vocals, and he just finished the vocals, and I can't sing backup vocals until he's done. So I'm the last guy. I just finished singing. I think I did 6 tracks yesterday of backing vocals, and then we're done. Now it's off to mix. I think the mix starts in just a couple of days.
Okay. Do you think we'll see it this year or early next year?
October 14th.
Oh, okay. That's easy enough.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very good, man. Well, dude, obviously, man, you got a lot of great stuff going on, and you're doing it for all the right reasons. And I applaud that. And I would imagine that our viewers and listeners will too. The new album, Mark Tremonti Sings Frank Sinatra. It is out next Friday, May the 27th. And Mark, where should we send people to get the record and keep up with you and Alter Bridge and all that stuff?
Go to TremontiSingsSinatra.com.
Okay.
That's the hub for everything. And that will also tell people how they can take a chance for charity or ask their favorite artist to do the same.
Absolutely. And don't be cheap, people. Donate. Everybody can afford $1. Everybody can afford $1.
Absolutely. And there's a donate now button there too for the same thing. You can donate as little as you want or as much as you want. You don't have to buy a record. You can just go donate money straight away as well.
Very good. Well, one more time, the new release is called Mark Tremonti Sings Frank Sinatra. And Mark, it is always a pleasure talking to you right here on CHRIS Akin Presents.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Hey, everybody, it is CHRIS Akin, and guess what, folks? I've got a couple of copies of this bad sucker right here. Call Me Chris, my best-selling book to date. It is it's a stellar book, I think. You know, if I can be so bold, it is a stellar book. It is about my time recovering from my burn accident. It is my best reviewed one. It is my best-selling book. And I actually found a few copies that are autographed and ready to go. So if you've been waiting for your book, Call Me Chris, you wanted it autographed, now's the time, because I don't have many of them. And once they're gone, they're gone. So order it today over at ChrisAkinBooks.com.